My grandfather used to tell my mother stories about how they came into his store and wanted to make him safe. Apparently, Carlo Gambino took that out of the equation. I mean, they still had their loan sharking and their prostitution and the. That's that life. I grew up in that life. I know about it. A family in it. This is 8672, 15th Avenue in Bath Beach, Brooklyn. This is where I raised my children when, before 1976, when I bought a house on 16th Avenue. Most of the time here, I was a policeman in the 7-2 precinct. And I'm pretty close to 3 clubs right on the corner here. My daughter was about 6, 7 years old, and you could send her to the corner to pick up Regatta on a Sunday for Sunday dinner, and she'd be perfectly safe. The Very Alley in Santoro, homicide, over on Bath Avenue. My wife was in the dry cleaners there when they both got clipped by Frankie Smith. It's a good thing she stayed in the store when she heard the shots. But that's that life in Bath Beach. But it was a nice neighborhood. I'm glad I grew up in it. I'm glad I survived it. I made the best out of it. I didn't become a wise guy, I became a cop. I saw so many of my friends dead in the street with no money in their pockets in this neighborhood. Growing up in Bath Beach, we had we were teenagers, we had a softball team. We used to play in the schoolyard in 163. And we had these yellow T-shirts with Dukes on them. And they were supplied by the local wise guy. Anthony Spiro bought all those shirts for us. We didn't even know who he was at that time. I didn't wake up until years later. And as time progresses, I go into uniform. And I'm pretty active. I'm stopping a lot of cars and making a lot of auto crime arrests, arresting people, recovering the cars. I think I did 30. So I was giving out a lot of summonses and stuff. I was active. You had to move around, so I got to know all the people on my post. I used to stop at a pastry store, eat the cannoli cream out of the back room. So anyway, riding around in a radio car one night, and we get a call, 1013, there's a foot patrolman out on 5th Avenue getting shot at. He's firing the back, and so we're pretty close, so we respond. And there's a uniformed cop behind the car, and a guy that came out of a social club who just had killed a guy inside. He was trying to stick up a card game inside the social club. So we pull up alongside, and now we're on the other side of the shooter. And you're nervous. If it's the first time I'm firing my gun in the street, and they tell you to shoot for center mass, the guy's firing at us. So we shoot for center mass, but we're hitting him in the leg. So he finally falls down. And we get him under control and take him to the hospital, and I don't know who kept guard on him and everything. But that turned out pretty good. Then another night, we get another call. A family dispute. I think it was on Prospect Avenue in a two-story building. So we get up to the apartment, and people are screaming inside the apartment and yelling. And the door's open. We open the door, push our way in, and there's a guy with a machete trying to hit his wife, and she's going like this, and I grabbed him from the back, and I'm pulling him, and he's fighting and tussling with me. And well, my partner's trying to help me. The woman is jumping on my partner's back, yelling, "Don't hurt my husband! He's trying to kill you with a machete!" And she's telling me, "Don't." Well, we finally got the thing under control. Usually you would just tell the guy to get out of the apartment and stay out, and then we would walk out, but not this time. I think I got cut on the hand. This realty company used to be a delicatessen, Italian deli. We used to send my my youngest daughter, she was about 6, 7 years old, on a Sunday when we were making gravy. She used to come over here and buy my wife a pack of Marlboros and get a half a pound of regatta, and then come back with it. Never any problems. In the middle of this block was Castellano's Club, which was the Veterans and Friends, which was was constructed by Dominic Montiglia, my associate for 38 years. I kept in touch with him ever since I arrested him in 1983. He gave me the information on a lot of murders. We take a walk down to the Veterans and Friends. It used to be called Jimmy Fiala's Club, not Castellano's Club. Castellano and all his associates used to meet here every Sunday morning, every Sunday afternoon. He'd come into this neighborhood at 1 o'clock. All you could smell is the cooking gravy and meatballs. This used to be the Veterans and Friends, Jimmy Fiala's Club, where Castellano used to come on every Sunday, and they split up all the proceeds from all the illegal money they were making. The sign used to say Genevieve's Tile. If you see the old pictures, that's what you're going to see. On the corner is Tommaso's Restaurant, where I don't remember the year now, Castellano met with the Westies, and they got together, and the Westies were supposed to supply 10% of the money they made in Manhattan. But they had to stop the shooting. That meeting was covered by NYPD. They got word from one of the associates. Now, I was a cop, and I lived in this area all my life. I grew up with most of these people. They all knew me. So there was a mutual respect. I respected them. They did respect me and my family. When I was home, I used to walk my Doberman from my house on 15th Avenue to the park on 14th Avenue, pass here every day, say hello as I walk by. And there was never any problem for me or my family. My wife could pass here every day. We shopped on the corner of the next corner, which was base 7. My friend Frankie Pork had a pork store there. My Doberman used to go in there and get a piece of meat. Or my wife would be up here shopping with the dog. This building was Cantaloupe Real Estate back in the 70s. This was the headquarters for Joe Colombo. Any time of the day that you walk past here, there was wise guys inside. Joe Colombo, Carmine Persico, Huey McIntosh. The lawyer's name, I think, was Gravanti that was in there. Years later, it was involved in his Italian-American Association, and that's partially why he got killed. Except that he was asked to stop the Godfather movie and by the commission, and he never got it done. So one day he had an organization meeting, and a hitman shot him. He didn't kill him. He didn't die till about 10, 11 years later. You asked about Joe Coffey. God rest his soul. He passed a few years ago in Florida. Retired. Joe was my boss in the Son of Sam task force. I never knew him prior to that, I don't think. He was a very good-looking guy, very capable, very knowledgeable. You had to love him. Now, on that task force, we were working from 4 at night to 8 in the morning. And from 4 to like 10 o'clock, we could do interviews with people that were volunteering information on people that they thought was the Son of Sam. Somebody volunteers the name of Mickey Featherstone. Mickey Featherstone is the underboss of the West East crime family, and possibly not the Son of Sam. But we have to investigate. So Joe Coffey makes arrangements with Featherstone's attorney to interview him, and myself and Joe go into Manhattan, and Mickey Featherstone is in there. So we interview him, and it can't possibly be him. Now I meet Mickey again in 1983 or 84 when he comes into the U.S. Attorney's office and wants us to prove that he didn't commit the murder that he's in jail for right now. Now, in 1983, I get transferred into the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, Organized Crime Homicide Task Force. And Joe Coffey's my boss again. Now we're working on a DeMeo crew, and we have them under surveillance going into R twice one evening. It's our twice collision in Canarsie. And apparently having a meeting, we see a car, a small Mercedes, pull up with Joey Testa. We see another one, Anthony Center. We see another one with Borelli, and a number of other cars. And we're parked in different locations watching this. So Joe sees something and he says it's time. So he thought he saw an exchange of drugs for money or whatever he saw, he calls it. So we all start to emerge on our twice collision. And I hit a concrete bunker with my two front tires and blowed them. So I can't do nothing about that. We both get out of the car and we run into the R twice. Joe Coffey's in it before of us. He's chasing Joey Testa into a bathroom. So I go in after him, and he's got Testa's head in the toilet bowl where he flushed some narcotics down in the toilet bowl. He says, Joe, what are you doing? He says, he's a creep. Anyway, so we go get them all. There must have been 7, 8 of them. We get them all inside our twice collision, and Joe tells them, lay down. Now they're all dressed in nice clothes. They said, what, are you kidding? We're going to get full of grease. He says, lay down. And they had to lay down. And they get cuffed, pick them up, and take them away. And that was the beginning of the indictment from USS Castellano. Standing here in front of this gas station on 14th Avenue and 86th Street, based on information in 1983 that we got from Vito Arena and Dominic Montiglia. Both of them were informed by Roy DeMeo that he had killed 2 people as a favor for people in Manhattan, which he didn't identify. And they buried them in this gas station. So based on the information that I had and the information the FBI had, we got a search warrant, federal search warrant to excavate this whole area. We dug it all up, and we were here for maybe 2 weeks. And all we found was a blue tarp, which we took and sent to the FBI lab, hoping that there would be some evidence on it, but turned out to be inconclusive. Never knew, at that time we didn't find out about those bodies. I found out about them later, in 2020. Found out the whole story behind that and identified the perpetrators. One day they had a pile of dirt over there by the driveway, and I had been in the mall in Kings Plaza, and they had one of these trick stores, so I bought a plastic arm and a hand. So one of the agents was a female. Her name was Marilyn Luck. So she was here visiting, seeing what was going on. And I took the hand and I stuck it in the sand. And they said, "Marilyn, I think we found something." She almost fainted. I had to tell her it was fake. Yeah. Now, if you go down to the corner of 14th Avenue, next to the park, is where the Lucchese crime family had a club. If you pass that every day, you'd either see Casso, Frankie Lazzarino, and a whole bunch of Lucchese people in and out of that place. I thought they said no rain today. This is the 19th hole, frequented and inhabited by the Lucchese crime family. The place was owned by Chris Fineri, called Chrissy Tick. And this was a Lucchese crime family hangout. Word is that some murders were committed in this place, but we were so busy working on the U.S. versus Castellano, U.S. versus the Westies, and U.S. versus the Commission that we never found anything out about it. We didn't work on the Lucchese crime family at all. I didn't work on them until 2020 when I got involved with the New York City Police Department Cold Case Squad, and we solved another 23 murders, organized crime murders, 17 of which were new murders that Dominic told us about before he passed away in 2021. We're standing here in the pouring rain on 86th Street near 15th Avenue, location the Veterans Club where Castellano and Nino Gaggi and Dominic Montiglia used to hang out. In April of 1986, sometime in the afternoon, maybe 1 o'clock, again, it's a time in this neighborhood where all you smells cooking was Italian gravy with meatballs. There's a plan underfoot. Apparently, Anthony Gaspar Casso and Vincent the Chin Gigante wanted revenge for the murder of Paul Castellano, which happened in 1985, because Gotti and Gravano took out a boss, and they were very upset about that. Casso and Gigante get together and make a plan to take out Gotti and Gravano when they come to the Veterans and Friends on 86th Street. Gigante has a hitman that he uses, little known guy. He's an ammunitions expert for the Army. And he donates his services to Casso. to do this hit. So they set up surveillance about a block away from here, probably in front of that gas station. And they're waiting for Gotti's car to pull up. The guy that Gravante volunteers to do this work, his name is Pate. Blue Eyes, they call him. He goes to Toys R Us and he rigs up some kind of detonator for the C4 that he's going to use in the explosion. And Casso argues with him. He says, why are you using something from a toy? He says, no, it works very well. He says, I've done it before. They've even practiced with it upstate. He says, it'll work. So, all right. So he says, so they're sitting in the car over here, Casso and Pate and the Muso watching this place. The caddy pulls up in front of Veterans and Friends. The two male whites get out and they go into the club. So Casso walks down here and he bends under the car out in the street side, under the passenger side, and inserts the C4 under the car. He goes back to the car. Now Pate is in another car. And by the way, the car that Pate's in belongs to Frankie Glastorino. And later on, the FBI gets the car and does the forensic work on it because it was damaged in the explosion. So the two men come out, they see them come out, they get back in the car, and Pate hits the detonator and nothing happens. So now he panics, he pulls up alongside the car with Lastorino's car. He doesn't even realize that it ain't Gotti, it's the Chico. And he presses the detonator and it explodes. Now you have an exchange of evidence from car to car. The glass from Pate's or Lastorino's car, which Pate was driving, goes into the caddy, and the glass from the caddy and the residue from the explosion goes into Lastorino's car that Pate's driving. And they get away. Fast forward to 2020, when myself and Tommy Dades and Joe Ponzi were working with the Cold Case Squad on all their old cases, their organized crime hits. We go looking for the file on the DeChico murder. Actually, it was a murder, and there was a guy in the car who was a Lucchese guy that looked like Gravano. His name was Bellino, I think. Yeah, it was. And he got hurt very bad, but he didn't die until some time later from the explosion. So actually, it was a double murder. But we go looking for the file, and we can't find the file. Every murder has a file that the police department puts together on all the work that was done on it. The file is missing. Nobody can find it. We spent weeks looking all over for where it would be stored. Apparently, every report that's done on these things has 3 copies. One of them stays in the case. One of them goes to crime scene. One of them goes to Central Records. And apparently they were never pulled apart and never broken down, so you couldn't even get a copy from Central Records. So whoever took it made it disappear. That file contained a witness's name that saw somebody from the neighborhood here who saw Casso under the car putting the things down under the car. But that name never came to light after that. Go looking for the forensics crime scene unit, they can't find their work. Property clerk can't find the door of the Cadillac. And the cars are gone. Everything on the case is gone. But we know that Casso, the Chin, who are both dead now. This is in 2021, 22, 23. The Chin is dead. Casso's dead. Amuse is in jail for life. I don't talk to nobody. So we take all the information that we have and we go to the DA's office in Brooklyn and we say, listen, this is what we got. We'd like to lock up this guy, Pate. And now this DA reviews this stuff and says, listen, we can't authorize this arrest without an independent witness, which we don't have. Because the file is gone, we don't know who he is. So that's that. The case today remains unsolved. And we know who did it, how it was done. And we still got a guy walking and chewing gum at the same time, living his life away in Nassau County and working for a construction company in Queens. You can't make this shit up. This guy, Herbert Blue Eyes Pate, was the guy that was responsible for this explosion. Here's a guy, you go back and look at his history. In 1969, he killed his partner, Vincent Albano, who was a detective in the Special Investigation Unit, which was a big narcotics unit, worked out of the 7-8, and came under scrutiny of some federal investigation agency, and most of them were arrested. But apparently, Albano was a neighbor of this guy, Pate, in Nassau County. And Pate borrows his uniform and his shield. He goes into the property clerk in Manhattan and removes the French Connection drugs, the evidence, the heroin. He removes it with the uniform, saying he's going to court. And he signs his name on the receipt book, leaves his fingerprints on the paper, and there's a video of a guy in uniform taking out the evidence. And now he's got it, and now they start arguing, him and Albano, about the proceeds, the split up. So Pate gets a little pissed off. He gets a gun from Casso, and he meets with Albano in the park, in Owl's Head Park in Park Slope, and he kills him. They have a shootout, actually, and he kills Albano, puts him in the trunk of his car, and drives him out to Staten Island and dumps him in the parking lot of the hospital. He's a guy who kills a guy in 1969, steals the French Connection drugs, and is still walking around.
Frank, in Louis Ippolito's bizarre autobiography, Mafia Cop, he wrote that book in the early 90s. He actually mentions you in the book. He says that, I don't know, he's on, I guess, 18th Avenue or somewhere, and he says that he's palling around with Rosario Gambino, obviously big junk guy, right? And here come Pergola and McCabe. Hey, that's not a good look. What the hell are you doing? He basically told you guys, fuck off or whatever it was. Can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe talk about Louis a little bit?
Myself and Kenny McCabe were driving around on something else, had nothing to do with Rosario Gambino. And we see him with Rosario under surveillance. He's watching Rosario move around. So we get to a point where Rosario is out of the picture, and we approach Ippolito, and he says, hey, Louis, what the fuck are you doing here? He says, look, mind your own business. So Kenny says, you know what, we don't have time for this. So we just took off. On another occasion, I followed Rosario Gambino. It just happened to be on 86th Street and I'd seen him visiting all these pizza stores, and I reported it to Kenny. And that was the end of that. There was always an occasion where you could use a guy like Louis. I mean, he was a little rough with prisoners, I knew that. And I was in a major case squad in this organized crime homicide task force. We were 6 detectives responding to all the organized crime homicides in Bath Beach. And I was always in the 6-2 precinct and always in Brooklyn South homicide, with the cases. So I'm up in the 6-2 one day, and Louie's there, and I said, Louie, are you aware that there's a store front down the block on Pate Avenue full of gypsies? He says, no. He says, I wasn't aware of that. I says, well, there's a young kid that's going to school with my daughter. He's a gypsy, and he lives in that store. He says, he's bothering my daughter. He says, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to him. He says, all right. So I forget about it. My daughter's telling me about a week later, she says, I don't see that kid anymore. He's not bothering me. I says, good. So the next time on the 6-2, I see Louis. He says, what happened with that thing? He says, don't worry about it. He says, we had to talk to the kid. He said, roughed him up a little bit, threw him in the trunk of the car, took him over to Greenwood Cemetery, threw him out and told him to walk home. He says, within a week, the store was empty and all the gypsies were gone, including the kid.
My God. My God.
Again, you can't make this shit up. We really had at that period of time, we really had no idea that he was partnering up with Caracappa on murders and stuff, and working for Gas Pipe Casa. Had no idea. When they finally arrested Caracappa and Ippolito, it took the FBI 10 years. They knew about this, and nothing was done. I became aware of them, and I didn't know who they were working for in 1983, and when I was working in the Major Case Squad, Organized Crime Homicide Task Force. And that's when I became aware of them, when we were up in Lake George. And I told you that story before. It was Caracappa that gave up our location, and we had to move. And here's a guy that I work with. This message is for Sean. Thank you for this jacket. It was a nice gift, and it was a godsend in this pouring rain that this crazy producer's got me out in. See you tomorrow.